Aston Hall in Derbyshire was a hospital for the mentally deficient, as they were called back then. Here, children under the care of psychiatrist Dr. Kenneth Milner were stripped, trussed up and drugged with sodium amytal, known then as a truth serum.
Now in this room, there's a window, but it's got shutters on the inside, yeah? There's a mattress on the floor, a black rubber mattress, and nothing else. That's it. So the nurse tells me to lie down on the mattress. No sheets on this mattress, a rubber mattress, no pillow. So you kind of like, you're half drugged up, you comply, you don't want to comply. The bigger part of you wants to fight, but you know you can't fight. Next minute anyway, she drags in this trolley. I can still see that trolley. It's a cream trolley, like cream and animal, like the old pans you used to get, like kind of like that. And she pulled it in and it squeaked. And on top was a kidney dish. There was old grey bandages that had been used. And there was little sachets of, do you know when you go like to the Mackies and you get salt? Mm-hmm. Like little packets. Like packets, like similar to that. And an injection and water. So she says to me, put one arm across the other arm, meaning put this arm across that arm in a cross, which I did. And then she started tying up my hands.
You were fastened, tied up naked on a mattress on the floor. He'd come in, get an injection in the arm, wait a few minutes, then put a mask over your face, and it had like gauze in it, and he'd drip ether onto your face. And basically it was like you were on a really good acid trip, you know, you were proper stoned. And he'd talk to you, ask you questions, but you didn't know whether you were coming or going, you know, you were absolutely shit-faced, stoned out your mind. This is what sodium amytal does to you.
Let's just think for a minute now. You're a 12-year-old little girl. Sexually, you're innocent. You haven't got a clue. You don't know. I didn't know anything. I'd never seen anything crude in my life. I might have sworn once or twice, but I'd never known. And I was an innocent kid. Naive, definitely naive. And then he put them cushions down and he lay down beside me. I didn't see it coming. I didn't know it was coming. I didn't know what was happening. The next minute, it's like, you know how I'm going to describe it? I'm going to describe it. Do you know a champagne bottle?
Yeah.
You know the wire cap that goes on the top?
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to describe it as a massive one of them. That's how it felt. And it had some kind of cotton wool or lint on it. And it just went straight over your face. And you just felt the fluid straight away and smelt it. And you went out of it. Completely gone.
And then sometimes I'd wake up and I'd have my knees tied together and my wrists tied together. And I'd be covered in marks all over my legs and my backside, where he'd obviously been belting me, because with my dad, I was an expert on the marks that belts leave, and I could, you know, white line down the middle, red either side, blah, blah, you know, all that shit. So whatever he was doing involved him hitting me while I was unconscious in this stoned state. And I was there for a year and 4 months.
Come around a little bit and you'd hear him talking to you, asking you silly questions. How old's your brother? You'd answer. But you shouldn't answer, because as soon as you answer, he's going to put more on to knock you back out. But you haven't got the ability not to answer. You don't know, you don't understand. If it happened to you today, you wouldn't understand, you wouldn't have the ability, and you're a big man. Mm-hmm. So every time you answered, he knew that you were alive and that you were breathing or whatever. I don't know what the hell he was doing. He'd knock you back out. Every time you come back round, you've been a different angle to what you was before. So for an example, when he first knocked me out, I'm lying back on the mattress flat. But when I came round, I wasn't. I was facing the wall with the mattress and his hand over me. Then I'm coming round again, and this time I've got my face to the left, but I'm laying on my stomach, but he can still angle the mask. Do you understand me? And this went on for 8 months. But the worst part about it was, on the first occasion, when it happened, I had no idea what the hell was going on in this place. I didn't know. I came around and I'm in the dormitory. I'd been introduced to my bed and my dormitory by the nurse the night before. And I'm in my dormitory. And I'm embarrassed to say this as a woman. And I'm embarrassed for the little girl I'm talking about as well, because she was only a little girl. I was only 12. Something wasn't right. And I knew it. I knew something had happened to me. And I don't want to go into further detail, but it wasn't right nor natural. And I told the nurse, there's blood on my back. I thought my back was bleeding because there was no blood, there was no injury. So I thought it was my back. And she went, no, that happens sometimes after you've had treatment.
Some kids even went missing.
Yeah. Loads of kids went missing.
Yeah.
Loads of kids. There were tales that, obviously, these places, kids tell each other tales when you're new there, especially. And one of the tales was that Milner had made, because the River Trent flowed through the grounds, and Milner had told these kids, under the influence of his drugs, to go and walk into the river and drown themselves, and they had. And at the time, it was a scary tale, but you didn't know whether it was true or not. And it's only since all this stuff about Milner came to light, and I've seen the records and everything, that I found out that it was perfectly bloody true.
Yeah. Let's touch on about the 3 boys who were found in the water dead, who were in Aston Hall.
Okay.
Let's get into that.
Right, it wasn't 3 boys. It was quite a few.
Was that more than 3?
Oh, more than 3, yeah. Right, let's have a look at... I've got some...
But you've got documents here.
I've just printed some stuff off. There's quite some interesting stuff here. Right, but this in particular one that I want to talk about is a young man, and it troubles me deeply. His name was Barry White, and he was 24 years of age. And he was an informal patient, and had been an informal patient for some time, a couple of years. So he had no need to run away because he was an informal patient. He wasn't sectioned. He had the ability or the freedom to say, open the door, I want to go. Just like all of us did when we were kids, but we weren't told that. We were made to believe that we had to be kept under high security, and we was kept under high security. Yeah? The windows didn't open. There was no fire escape. You know, we were took to school by security guards. One boy I can think of, obviously I can't name him. I wish I could. If I phoned him, he'd probably say, yeah. You know, when he escaped from Aston Hall, he had MI5 looking for him. That's all on his medical reports, by the way. Anyway, Barry White, 24 years of age, escapes from Aston Hall, even though he's an informal patient.
So he could have signed out, walked out.
He could have walked out any day he wanted. He was not a danger to anybody, okay? And he gets chased, and just like many others, runs into the River Trent that run directly behind the mental institution. If you look at all the mental institutions across the country, which I have done, you will find they're always backed onto a canal. Okay? Quite interesting. Anyway, he runs into the River Trent and drowns. He doesn't just drown because, believe it or not, I've seen his death certificate. Right? He was mangled by some kind of watermill. He was really badly cut up. Okay, and he was wearing Aston Hall overalls at the time. He was buried in Leicestershire. Even though he died in Nottingham, he was buried within 24 hours in Leicestershire. His family was not informed of his death, and he was not formally identified. And there's a report from a coroner you can see for yourself.
Yeah. We'll put this on the screen so people can see. So this is a young boy who could have been out any time, but yet chose to drown himself, which is how you're going to drown yourself. Your instincts will kick in where...
Well, that's one boy. I've got the other 3 to talk about. 3 young lads. Now, this really puzzles me. It troubles my mind a lot. 3 young fellas. I would say the same age group, right? I haven't got that piece of paper with me at the moment, but I will give it to you. I'll email it to you. So they decide they're going to escape, or so it seems. And a farmer witnesses these 3 fellas walk into the River Trent, literally walk into the River Trent, continue walking, do not run, do not swim, do not attempt to any survival tactics which would be normal.
Yeah, your instinct, survival instincts.
They
would kick
walk
in.
into the water until they're under the water and drowned. 3 of them at once. Farmer couldn't help them.
So do you think they're drugging the boys?
I think
and
that was an experiment.
Telling them what to do to see if they would do it.
That was, yeah. How far sodium amytal will go.
And this is young kids.
This is young men. That was young men.
So this Milner ran Aston Hall
Yeah.
for 30 years.
Yeah.
So many people came forward as well and told
Yeah.
their story, but
Yeah.
he would use it as they're psychotic,
Yeah.
they're not right in the head,
Yeah.
and we get away with it.
That's it, yeah.
But he was also had connections with Jimmy Savile
Yeah.
in Aston Hall.
That's the... Well, I don't know how true all that is, but I've been told that Jimmy Savile was one of the people that had dealings with the place. There were loads of other folk used to turn up. You didn't know who they were. You know, it was much like St William's later on. Folks turned up in suits, wandered around and boggered off. But in the meantime, Milner got away with doing whatever he wanted to do with whoever he wanted to do it to.
Yeah, kids as young as 12.
12, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were little kids there.
You speak about one of the wards in Aston Hall. Is it Elm ward?
Elm, yeah.
Elm, where the screams and people...
Yeah.
What was that ward like?
It was exactly the same as Beach, the one I was in, except on the outside of it, imagine a tennis court size area with a tennis court wire mesh fence all the way around it and a tennis court wire mesh roof over the top of it. And out there, there'd be all day long, 24 hours a day, all you could hear from Elm was met, because it was all grown men by then. They were all outside screaming non-stop. They'd be sat there wanking non-stop. Some of them would be there naked, wandering around, some in straight jackets. Some of them fastened into the really big high-back chairs that they used to have, screaming. You know, it was like a vision of bedlam. Mm-hmm. You know, it was as scary as anything you could possibly imagine for young lads to be faced with that. And if you didn't toe the line in Beach, then the staff would say, right, well, carry on misbehaving, you're going to end up in there with them. I think in all the length of time I was there, social workers turned up 3 times to see me. And they'd stay for about half an hour, then fuck off.
Did they ever ask you, is there anything going on?
They'd ask you all sorts about what it was like and if you liked it. And it didn't matter what you told them, because whatever it was you told them, they weren't going to take any notice. They just came, filled out the form, say they'd been, and fucked off.
Do you think they were involved also?
I'm sure they knew what was going on.
Is that an independent report in 2018 found nearly 100 kids were drugged, stripped and abused? And that was only
that's just
2 years
scratching
ago.
the surface. Yeah.
So it just shows you how long that's been open for. How long? 60 years, 70 years?
Yeah. Aston Hall was there for many years, and Milner ran it. Not only that, he worked at other psychiatric hospitals as well.
So was he just drugging kids to abuse them, or was he actually... What was he searching for anything?
Well,
it
was proper researching into looking for a truth serum for the government and people. And when you speak to Barbara later on, she's going to bring you some paperwork. I've seen the paperwork that she's got. And Barbara's like tenacious as a mad rat. You know, she'll not let anything lie. And she's dug up all this stuff, and it shows the connection between Milner, the American CIA, a thing called MK Ultra, and all these other secret government department stuff, where he was testing drugs and sending them reports. So they got the perfect truth serum to use on enemy combatants, was the term. Yeah.
So they're picking innocent kids, people who are vulnerable, people who are causing trouble or kept in the cellar, and people think, oh, they're crazy. So if they do run away or speak out,
nobody's going to believe them.
Nobody's going to believe them.
Well, the social workers, the police, everybody used to tell them till you were blue in the face, and not one of them gave a shit.
Yeah.
You know, you could tell they knew, and I swear to God they all knew, but they didn't care.
Today, Derbyshire Police came up with a different kind of truth.
It was important for the police to investigate, despite knowing from the outset that Dr. Milner had died many years prior. The investigation has concluded that had Dr. Milner been alive today, he would have been interviewed as a suspect under caution.
Is the past coming back to haunt Westminster? Allegations of abuse in the 70s and 80s. Allegations a dossier was destroyed. Allegations of a cover-up. A former government whip speaks about how they gained a hold over MPs by making problems go away.
It might be a scandal involving small boys, or any kind of scandal. They'd come and ask if we could help. And if we could, we did. And we would do everything we can, because we would store up brownie points.
I was given details of 2 officers, which I then went and I passed on indirectly via a cabinet minister to the Home Secretary. And these are 2 officers that were on guard at Downing Street. They were protection officers for Ted Heath back in the day. And 3 times a week, when Ted Heath was in residence at Downing Street, a car would pull up in the early hours of the morning, midnight to 2 a.m, and young 8-year-old boys were produced, one boy at a time, and they were taken, via a series of security checks, right, into his residence, and the door would be shut. And they both said to each other, we can't have this. They knew, clever lads knew, that if they mentioned anything, the sword of Damocles would come down like it did on me, and it comes down hard. So they actually accosted Ted Heath in person. And they said, right, sir, we need to talk, and we need to talk now. They said, we want to talk in your room. He went in the room and they said, it stops, and it stops today. And the lad said, actually, it did stop for 2 weeks, but then they were moved, and then they were pensioned off. They took early retirement, full pensions, bang, off they went.
In 1957, an MP asked the Home Office, why is there 5-year-old children in Broadmoor Prison? And the Home Office, if you check on Hazard, I'm sorry I haven't got the printout for that. I have got it available.
Yeah, that's okay. We can put links.
I can give it to you. I will not say nothing unless I can back it up, right? The Houses of Parliament replied, the 5-year-old child in question is very hard to manage. Nobody else can manage him, so he's had to go to Broadmoor, 5 years of age. Yeah. However, we built 2 villas and a school for the delinquent children, or words to that effect, in Broadmoor. Okay, let's take a look at Broadmoor. Where's your schools and villas? Oh, I see. They're not there. Well, that's funny, because Aston Hall Hospital has got 2 villas being built the same year you're referring to, and a school. And all of these children are getting shipped in from every corner of the country, literally every corner of the country, from Newcastle, from Scotland, from Oxford, from Bristol, where's the other fellow? Cornwall, all shipped in via these homes, and they have to fit the criteria to get into Aston Hall. The criteria being parents who don't give a shit. Parents who are not going to listen.
So that's for kids getting abused and coming forward. Nobody would believe them.
And you're a mental defective. You've been diagnosed by a psychiatrist. Who's going to you've been in the mental hospital. Who's going to listen to you?
Yeah, so it's a big setup. It's a paedophile ring, grooming kids, abusing them, drugging them, experiments.
Now, age of consent varies because, people grow up quicker in different parts of the world and they've got different attitudes to things. But, you take indigenous cultures, which they're illiterate, they've not been educated and they're devoid of structured religion, They followed this group and they said that anyone who hurts a child, what we consider a young child, they're banished by the elders into the jungle. They've got to go as far away as they can for 2 years. If they survive on their own, which is highly unlikely, they're allowed back in, but they are treated down at the level of a dog. So even in these cultures, it is wrong. So when we look at that, and I want to get back to the question you did ask me, I don't want to keep jumping the gun, but when we look at that, then we look at, well, what about our culture? When we look at a group called PIE, P-I-E, Paedophile Information Exchange, was set up in the 70s. They wanted sex with boys to be lowered to 10 years old. They were backed by Margaret Hodge, right, MP, right honourable, Patricia Hewitt, the longest serving female MP, right, and Harriet Harman, right, all backed them. And they ran a group, these three MPs, called the NCCL, the National Campaign for Civil Liberties. Harriet Harman herself wanted the age of consent for girls lower to 14, right? So we're looking at these indigenous cultures. Look at our culture with the backing of people that all went on to positions of privilege. And I think it was Tony Blair appointed Patricia Hewitt as Minister for Children, Children's Minister. And she was backing Pi, and they were even allowed Pi to give a talk at their end of year seminar in the London School of Economics.
You go on the internet, you have a look on Cyril Smith on the hazard, right? Now, why would Cyril Smith go in whatever year it was, I think it was 68, to the Houses of Parliament and make a request for a remand home to be built for girls in Leicestershire when he was frequenting the remand home in Derby? Must have been an inconvenience travelling all the way to Derby, mustn't it? Mm-hmm. You know?
Yeah.
Do you understand where I'm coming from? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And when you look and you read all of these things on hazards of certain MPs that are now coming to light, you just think, well, but you know what? They've all got a Derbyshire connection. The East Midlands seems to me to be the catch-hole of paedophiles. The hub. Everything regarding paedophilia seems to be linked in originally to the East Midlands, Derbyshire, Nottingham, in particular Nottingham. That Beechwood children's home, what people suffered there was astronomical, you know.
It goes on. You can take Beach Home, Shirley Oaks, you know, there's a whole plethora of these care homes everywhere, all across the country, you know, and they got shut down and they just morphed into private concerns, and it still carries on to this day. But, I mean, Shirley Oaks was a big care home in South London, and they had 19 known paedophiles. And then you get deeper, you get into the fact that who is behind this, who's sanctioning this, and you've got to look at who were the cabinet ministers that were for child welfare, and then you realise that they're dirty as well. I mean, the last 5 prime ministers, they all have what they call PAs. They're not personal assistants, they're political advisors. Every one of these PAs, you know, right the way back down to Thatcher and beyond that, had involvement with child pornography, either downloading or child abuse investigations against them. Every single one. You know, I mean, there was one guy, I think his name was Patrick Rock. He might have been either Tony Blair's or Cameron's PA. He was caught with thousands and thousands of images, right, child abuse images. And I think it might have been Cameron. Cameron put him in charge of internet security. And it's dark and it's dirty. And honestly, you've got to look at who either attacks you or who backs you. And there your answer is. But it's well established. It's been going on for a long, long time. And if we look at our criminal justice system, I don't mean to domineer anything here, James, but, you know, back in 2003, they brought in the Bad Character Act in the UK, which says that anyone who had a propensity for a certain type of criminality, it could be brought in during the trial. Years ago, they couldn't, on the whole, do it until they were convicted or acquitted, right? And people thought, it's a massive leap forward. But one of the things they kept tarnishing people with was dishonesty. You're a man of dishonesty, a woman of dishonesty. And that was offences of theft, right? Shoplifting or whatever. It's dishonest crime. But when you say the word dishonest, you instantly think liar, liar, liar. They knew this was coming out on massive scale. They knew it. This bit of legislation, in my opinion, was brought in to attack victims and survivors. And they could also not only use criminal convictions, but they could use reports from schools or care homes. So when these kids were reporting these abuses and I want to touch on what you said about this Aston Hall. In the schools, that they were told they were liars. A report was made, this kid is a liar, a fantasist, right? And if it went on, what they would do to the kids is they would then say, right, if you carry on lying, you'll end up where the liars go, and it'd be next door. So these care homes, kids' homes, next door would be the mental institutions where they would section them, and they never got out. And I know one girl, she's a campaigner for us, and she walked in, she'd been abused in her home herself, but she'd walked in on a little 6-year-old girl being raped by one of the night porters, She went and told the housemaster, who they used to call uncles and aunties, to give it a homely thing. And when she did that, they sectioned her, 11 years old, for life.
The Ted Heath thing as well, the former Prime Minister. How did that story come about?
Right, listen. Ted Heath was of no consequence to me. Absolutely none whatsoever. He was one of thousands, right? There was no sexual penetration. It happened, See, now this, again, shows where the authorities lie and tell lies. I'm under the care of the courts. The authorities have me under their care, under a court order. So, in legal speak, they are acting as my parents, yeah? We agree with that, yeah? Mm-hmm. They state that at the school that I'm talking about where this incident happened, that I was on home leave. Again, the question has to be asked, where was home? Because there ain't no record of it. And bearing in mind that they were my legal guardians, I stayed at the school during the home leave. Right? I'd go to Shirley Oaks or the Hollies, play up. They couldn't handle me. I'd go back to the school and finish holidays there. A guy called Max Sharman, who was the deputy headmaster, said, did I want to go sailing? Yes. I was the only boy there. Nothing else to do. It was either that or do fucking chores, gardening, which I didn't want to do. So we went to a place called Pin Mill, which was then a little yachty haven, nothing. There were no gin palace. They were sailing boats. Probably up to 30, 35 foot at the most. And we went sailing. There was 4 of us. Me, Ted Heath, I didn't know who he was, the doctor from the school, and the fucking deputy headmaster. And I was told to go nude swimming, which I did. Ted Heath tried me. Give me a blowjob, played me with Willie, had me do kissing. Well, he was kissing more than blowing, to be quite honest with you. And got me to do the same to him. And that was the extent of it. I got £5 and a fag. That was the extent of it. And it didn't happen in the open. We went in the cabin on this thing. Just a single cabin.
It's still bad, though.
Of course it's bad, but there was nothing I could do.
Yeah.
I couldn't have said no, although you'd think at 13, 14 years old, you know.
Yeah.
But if you haven't got anybody, right, to back your corner, who the hell do you tell?
Yeah. See, at that time, Michael, because you've been through all that much with the rapes and the abuse, was that becoming the kind of the norm, that it was actually becoming normal, that
the norm.
Adults were treating you like that?
For me, we were pieces of meat, hence the name the meat rack.
One comment I would make is I think an awful lot of money, an awful lot of police time now goes into these historic offences and all this malarkey, and, you know, £60 million I saw was being spaffed up the wall on, some investigation into historic child abuse and all this kind of thing. I mean, what on earth is that going to do to protect the public now?
Virginia Roberts alleges that age 17 she was trafficked to London by the convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, and that night, shortly after this picture was taken, she had sex with Prince Andrew. Now aged 35 and called Virginia Gouffret, she's reiterated her allegation in her first UK interview, and she had a message for the UK public.
I implore the people in the UK to stand up beside me, to help me fight this fight, to not accept this as being okay. This is not some sordid sex story. This is a story of being trafficked.
Prince Andrew has admitted being friends with Jeffrey Epstein and even visited him after his conviction for child sex offences. An attempt last month to tell his side of the story in a Newsnight interview backfired. Amidst the backlash, he was forced to step back from royal duties. Since then, he's kept a low profile, but he did categorically deny Miss Gouffre's allegations, insisting he has no recollection of meeting her and maintaining her version of events could not have happened.
I had suffered what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at. And I simply, it was almost impossible for me to sweat.
Jeffrey Epstein's suicide in the summer has heightened calls for those who surrounded and enabled him to face justice. Miss Gouffre argues many of the defences given aren't good enough.
The people on the inside are going to keep coming up with these ridiculous excuses, like his arm was elongated, or the photo was doctored, or he came to New York to break up with Jeffrey Epstein. I mean, come on. I'm calling BS on this, because that's what it is. He knows what happened. I know what happened. And there's only one of us telling the truth.
It is all connected, but I think something's coming to a head. I think you look at the Prince Andrew scandal, you look at the Epstein, for that to be getting airtime as well, and for him to even do, Prince Andrew, to even do an interview, shows you that pressure must be getting put on somewhere.
Of course, and you can see the arrogance of them, because that interview was appalling. I think anyone who's got half a modicum of intelligence will realise it was a farce. But again, you just got to look at this shower of scum that they are. I mean, his brother, Prince Charles, I mean, I knew one guy that was a protection officer for that family. He said he's just weird. You go near him and he shakes away. But he was protecting for 14 years Bishop Peter Ball, who was a bishop for, I think it was down in Eastbourne, in Sussex, and he was abusing kids in his care. He was raping them, basically, and one of them committed suicide. He was protected by the Archbishop George Carey, who is now Lord George Carey. And then when the police did have the balls to go and do something about it years later, numerous victims later, scores of victims later, and a suicide later, they found letters to Bishop Ball from Prince Charles denigrating victims, saying that they're wretched individuals, they're liars, how dare they defame your name, when it was categorically proved that Bishop Ball was a very active, sadistic paedophile. So we got Prince Charles protecting this bloke, housing him for 14 years, and now we got his brother that is involved with a 14-year-old girl. The man is a paedophile and has been for a very, very long time. And these islands always crop up in child abuse inquiries, because once you're on an island, where are you going to go?
So what's the connection with Milner and Jimmy Savile? How are they connected?
Right, well, to be fair on that, I haven't got the golden chain, but I've got a link.
Okay.
There's a big difference, yeah? Apparently, I have got photographs of Jimmy Savile at Saxondale Hospital, right? He frequented a lot of places around Derbyshire, okay, in his camper van. Common knowledge. Saxondale Hospital, Baldstones Hospital, Aston Hall Hospital, all came under Nottingham No. 3 Hospital. They were all run by the same area health authority, yeah? So he frequented Saxondale Sister Hospital. He came from the same town as Milner. There was 2 years between their age difference. Milner was born in 2009, Savile 2011. They went to the same schools. Milner was the medical superintendent of Broadmoor and Rampton, and Jimmy Savile had the free run of the place.
Because if you look at the Jimmy Savile as well, remember the royal family are the most powerful family in the world. So the intelligence must be so high where they must do background checks to know people's... and Jimmy Savile had that. He was marked with that card for so many years, but yet it went undetected.
James, if I went for a job, and I got this job with the police, and it was a field intelligence officer, but I was dealing with... And intelligence is graded, and it starts off with sensitive. And they've got little colour codes, so they have a little yellow label, sensitive, and then it'll be a green label, will mean highly sensitive, and then it'll go all the way up to a red label, which will mean top secret. And you have to be vetted according to your access to that information. And I was to get access to top secret information for this job. So they said, right, you've got to go for vetting, high level vetting. And when I went there, I went for an interview, They wanted to make sure I was mentally okay to deal with the job, psychometrically testing me, and then they said, right, we've got to know your whole internet history. Are you involved in watching internet porn? Are you involved in swingers? And in online dating was a big one. They said you'll probably, if you're on online dating, you will fail vetting. And it was really funny because it was a woman, a detective, right, a lesbian woman. She said, if you're homosexual, you probably won't get the job either. I said, well, in this day and age, she said, this preordains, this goes way above, political correctness, because you're going to have a propensity for more sexual partners, and there's going to be more scope for bribery. Right, so bearing that in mind, I mean, even I was engaged at the time to a Lithuanian girl, and they wanted to know about all her family as well, and her father had been in prison in Russia, and they got everything. So they really did a proper job. So that was vetting to deal with top secret information. So how the hell can people like Leon Britton, right? Leon Britton, who's now deceased, the former Home Secretary, have got the fastest ever promoted Home Secretary we've ever had, and the youngest, right, after Winston Churchill, get to that level when he had a propensity for young boys. How the hell did Jimmy Savile, when the intelligent... What we know, right, there's a world difference between proof and truth. Right, when you're in the police, this is why my campaign for police whistleblowers is so important, because police whistleblowers, police know everything. Right, we have access to the files and we have access to intelligence. And when people read in the paper, look, so-and-so's been let off, he didn't do it, there's been a few celebrities, again, mindful of libel laws, right? But then you read the police intelligence, they've been at it for a long, long time. We've got the highest burden of proof anywhere in the world, right, beyond all reasonable doubt. And to prosecute a historic child abuse case, 2% success rate. So all that stacked against you, you really got to know your stuff in order to get a prosecution. But just because someone gets a not guilty or they don't even get charged doesn't mean they didn't do it. Mm-hmm. So when you look at all this information, you sit there and you realise these people that are cropping up. My mates still ring me every now and then, ex-colleagues, and say, so-and-so, do you remember him cropping up on a report or her cropping up on a report? And they've all been at it. And what I will say to people that watch this, right, whatever you see in the newspapers and all that, and they get off with it, there's always more to it, always more to it. And the fact that even the police are sniffing around them, alarm bells should ring. Mm-hmm. And Jimmy Savile was well at it for a long, long time. So, and having access to the royal family, that guy would have been vetted. And what I say to people is, anyone who has children, right, look at your 8-year-old kid. Look at your 3-year-old kid. And what do they see in these people? They anally rape 3-year-old children. And these are people that are in positions of prominence, power and privilege. These are people that are in the media spotlight. I could sit here and honestly, the names I knew because I was subject to this intelligence, I'd end up in prison, so there's no point doing it. And they're sitting there protesting their innocence. And you think, I know who you are and I know what you are. And I'd just say you might as well get a whole blanket and throw it over the whole media industry, the entertainment industry on the whole, without denigrating them. But again, if they're innocent, we'll take a polygraph test then. Let's analyse your statement and let's see if you have or you haven't done it.
Pedo Island, John, what you were saying there from the Epstein scandal, what is Pedo Island?
Well, it's his private island, isn't it, where it was all going on. But islands crop up all the time. I mean, we had Hope de la Garenne in Jersey. Again, you're saying about this Aston Hall, Hope de la Garenne was exactly the same in Jersey, and that's surrounded by water. And if you chuck a body of a child into a rocky sea, it doesn't get trawled. You can't trawl rocky sea. You've got to go out. So if kids are chucked in by the rocks, they're never going to be found, unless there's a diver going there or something, they might find them. And then you've got marine wildlife that will soon eat it up. So water's always a good way. And water destroys DNA. So once a body's chucked in the water, any DNA in that is just ruined. It's just destroyed, and it's very difficult to determine cause of death once a body has been underwater for a while, unless there is a bullet hole or something like that. Mm-hmm. So water will always be a place of choice, and if it's fast flowing, it's unlikely to have divers going in there.
I was taken to Eastbourne, where I was bought and sold daily and nightly to many, many men. Now, sometimes I'd get half a crown or 2 bob, but they were being paid. I'm absolutely certain that once you have been sexually abused as a child, you are tainted. And you might as well have it tattooed on your head. Take me. Because every fucking paedophile in London would know exactly who you are.
Mm-hmm.
There were rings going around all the time. And it involved people in high places as well as low places. I used to see, they used to put us on the meat rack, boy. Hence the name of the book, put us on the meat rack in Piccadilly. Hence the name Meat Rack Boy. I wasn't the only one. But let's get this right. There were hundreds of them. Kids were 2 a penny in London in the 50s. You know, you could buy and sell a child, get rid of it, and no one would know. And this went on. I was filmed as a small child having to do things with my sister, who was a year older than me. Neither of us knew, not a clue what we were doing. I didn't know what a bloody freckle was. To me, a woman's genitals looked like a bloody rotten hedgehog. You know what I mean? I didn't have a clue. But there's an 8mm film of my sister and I doing things.
Yeah, and I know you says there that you were angry at yourself that you couldn't stop it, but when you're going through that trauma and those rapes and all that pressure, it starts to become a part of you where you become robotic.
I found that I went about the whole issue in the beginning, in my mind, wrong. I'd done it the wrong way. Right? I should have killed him.
It's easier said than done.
When I had the opportunities, I should have killed him.
Did that go through your mind?
When I was a grown-up, it went through my mind. For years it went through my mind to find these people.
How long did you ever out them while they were alive? Or when they were still alive, did you think, like you said...
I used to go searching.
Yeah, for them?
Yeah, I went to sea. I was a seaman, became a seaman, fisherman. And I used to go searching. I'd knock on people's doors to find these people. And the plan was to kill them.
So when you got older, if you'd seen your abusers then, you would have killed them if you'd seen them?
Yes. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. Anybody who came near me, including those I married, were rejected. I'm ashamed to say that. I put no effort into the marriages at all. It was kind of trying to get a mask of reality. Because up until, 40, 50, my life was a kaleidoscope. You know, I'd been taking drugs since the 60s.
To block out the pain?
Every drug to block out bloody life.
Mm-hmm.
I used to go to sea for long stretches at a time and months, come back and go on the piss and stay totally drunk for a week after 6, 7, 8 months at sea.
Did you ever think about taking your own life?
Oh, I attempted it many, many times. The times I've walked to the arse end of a boat that I've been on and thought, shall I, in the middle of the night? No one's going to fucking know. You know, and for hours, I'm gone. And being a bit of a coward, it worried me that the water would be cold.
I wouldn't say you were a coward, Mike. I would say you're anything but.
It was to block life out. You know, the life I was living wasn't a good life. Thousands upon thousands of emails, messages going, oh, you're brave to do this. You're an inspiration. You're speaking for us. No fucking hands.
Yeah.
Not at all. I'm not brave. I'm a gutless fucker who should have fought this years ago, the proper way. I'm not an inspiration to anyone. I wouldn't want anyone to aspire to be me. You know what I mean? I'm an arse, an idiot.
Yeah, I think you're too hard on yourself, Michael, because the abuse you went through, mate, and people would close off and not want to speak about it. By you speaking about it brings other people forward. Because I know you went up against, is it Lambeth, the council?
Lambeth Council.
And you received a cheque, compensation, but now they're saying they never gave you money, is that correct?
They gave me Shirley Oaks Children's Home, of which I was in. Lambeth admitted that abuse went on in that home. It was one of their homes. But before they became Lambeth as a borough, it was LCC, London County Council, as everything was. And then in 65, the boroughs are all split up to become what they are now, Wandsworth, Lambeth, Battersea. Now, none of them, not one of them, will accept responsibility for my care. Yet Lambeth supplied me the records. They say they're family files, and I'm only in them because my twin brother and sister is in them, right? Because they cared for my twin brother and sister. Now, I looked hard. We were taken into care legally in 1952, all three of us, the siblings, together under the same care order, under the 1948 Children's Act. Now, there is no provision anywhere under that act. In fact, it was expressly forbidden for siblings, unless in exceptional circumstances, to be split up. And you could not transfer care from one authority to another. You could put children from Lambeth into a home run by Wandsworth, but you couldn't hand the care over to Wandsworth. The care was the responsibility of Lambeth, right? Because they hold the care order. Now, they say this is not true, but nobody is saying who holds the care order or held it. Nobody is telling me where you can get it from either, right? Lambeth have continuously, I can show email after email from these arses, to go to the LMA, the London Metropolitan Archives, that hold the records of all children in care in England and Wales. Yet it doesn't. Because when you get your records, it's a series of numbers. It's a card index. And they give you a rough translation. But the one they gave me, the dates don't add up. Yet it's supposed to be a true record.
Chris and Hayley have a 10-year-old son who, like many children his age, enjoys video games and football. Until recently, they had no idea their son had downloaded video sharing app TikTok onto his phone. Until one day, messages started popping up on his screen.
And I've come home from work then, obviously turned on the phone and looked at the messages, and then they were like, "Do not ignore me. I know who you are," but swearing, "I know who you are and I'll come and get you." So obviously, like, threatening a 10-year-old with them sort of messages.
TikTok is a social media app that focuses on video. The company says it's used by more than 500 million people, and their biggest market? Teenagers. Kids use it to post videos of themselves lip-syncing and dancing to their favorite songs. Most are just easygoing, harmless bits of fun. But as Chris and Hayley's story shows, there's a darker side to the app. Adults use it not only to contact children, but also to post sexual comments on their videos. We found hundreds of them on TikTok, offering children money for sex, telling kids to show parts of their body on screen, asking girls to perform sexual acts, people saying they're aroused by the video.
Do they ever have any compassion themselves? Do they realise, okay, what I'm doing here is
For
wrong,
themselves?
I need help? Or is it constant excuses?
Never ever on a sting have we seen
No, they
compassion.
feel bad for themselves.
They
That's
feel
it.
compassionate about themselves. They feel like, oh, my life, what am I going to do? Oh, with my poor wife, oh, what, I mean, how's this going to affect me?
There's a lot of people single, unmarried, that you catch.
I think it's probably about 50-50, isn't it? There's loads of people married.
With their own kids.
With their own kids.
Does the police or social work go and search their own house and question their own kids then? To see
Supposedly their house gets raided and their devices get took, and then that would mean that the social work would get involved. I mean,
But the sheriff, I think it's harder. It's getting harder for the police to get the sheriff to give them the warrant to do. That's what I've heard. Anyway. In England, I think it's like defos happening. Your house's defos getting searched. But I think again in Scotland, the sheriff finds it. I don't know, for some reason, like, oh, maybe we won't bother doing that.
the police will claim one thing, but do a totally different thing.
What's the biggest sentence you have got so far?
44 months, I think it is. 44 months.
That's quite long, but for a paedophile, to be fair.
And he went in on Christmas Eve. So nice. We've had a couple going on
What was
Christmas
his crime?
Eve. Was she 12 or 13?
12.
Yeah, she was 12. But he had a lot of previous. You're not going to be able to do anything about him, I don't think, ever.
Is there a lot of reoffenders?
Aye. We've caught... I stung a guy in learning difficulties. When I got there, I seen that he had quite clear learning difficulties, so I didn't go live with him. His carer ran up and an altercation took place. They were kind of put in a place, but when we all got back in the motor, the police said they were jailing him, right? But when we all got back in the motor, we were like, we should have been live because that carer's got something to do with us. It was dodgy, you know what I mean? I just wish I'd filmed it. What was it, 3 months later, he was back and he was talking and all that. So I thought to myself, do you know what, fuck you, you're getting stung this time. We went to Edinburgh and I stung him. He sat there and had a full conversation with me, so his learning difficulties weren't that bad. And
well, he knew how to go on the internet and buy a teddy bear for a 12-year-old boy.
But he admitted that the police that night, he remembered me for this thing before, and I said to him, what happened? And he said, the police just took me in the van, took me home.
What kind of violence have you
Well,
received?
Robert Montgomery pulled a knife on us last Christmas, and I was just like, fuck, I've got no idea how to react to this. Like, it's really not a situation that I'm in a lot. But luckily, Cece was like much more on it. It was only really me that he wanted to stab anyway.
Why?
Because I was a man, so obviously I had to get stabbed. But he didn't. And I think realistically, actually it was quite good, because what happened was the police put him through court for the knife, fined him, let him walk out of court, and then just rearrested him on the steps again for the grooming, which are, you know, like, sometimes the police have got a good sense of humour in that respect.
Yeah.
Like, just really fucking with somebody, like, and that's why sometimes I think, like, although prison is going to be a much more unpleasant experience, there's something perversely kind of punishing about putting someone through loads of courses, and they've got to, like, get to somewhere once a week, and you know, it's like just totally bureaucratic inconvenience is also quite an interesting form of punishment.
There was a guy I worked with, he was a detective, right, and he got himself a job as one of these internet decoy things. So Scotland Yard set up this unit where they trained undercover officers to make out they were like little girls and get groomed, you know. Anyway, he was on this elite little unit, and he was going all over the place. He was giving talks on it, this guy, right? And he was involved in swinging. And I bumped into him one day in the pub, and he was with a girl, and he'd met her at a swinging party, and he told me, as well as being a copper, he was organising these high-level swinging parties. And he said to me, it's unbelievable, he said, because the top guy in my Masonic lodge, who was a Mason, he said, he goes there. He said, we've got a judge from the local Crown Courts going there in Hertfordshire, he's going there. And this place actually did end up, it was in Radley, it did end up in the papers as this sort of big top-notch swinging thing. And he said, well, everyone's going there. It's a good way to get connected. And he went to the toilet, and the girl he was with, she didn't seem too happy at being involved in this. And we sort of got talking. And anyway, I thought nothing of it. I thought it was a bit odd. Anyway, about 2 weeks later, I'm going to get the train, and he's been arrested, right? And so it was a bit later than that. It was a few months had gone on. But he's on the front page. I think it might have been the Sun newspaper. He was caught. Now, they used to grade pornographic images 1 to 5, right? So 1 would be like a topless child, and it was negligible whether or not it was criminal, because people do take photos of their kids in a bath.
At the swimming pool.
Yeah. But then it goes down, and when it's level 5, these are children that are being sodomised and having sex with animals. And one of them will get you an 18-month prison sentence, an image. This guy had 2,000 level 5 videos, right? And they were found on a police computer that he'd stolen, right, from the City of London Police. He'd stolen it. And before he joined the police, he worked for the intelligence services, and he was in the intelligence regiment in the army. And so really, all of that, he should have been given 10 to 15-year sentence. He got a community service order, and he was commended for his covert work in Northern Ireland. So, this is back-scratching on the highest level.
So many people are messaging me right now, well, the last 6 months to really get involved with the paedophile rings and the grooming gangs that are involved in Glasgow, because apparently it's becoming one of the biggest targets in the UK, which I've not seen yet, but I've been reading about it the last couple of months. I believe there was a police sting 3 years ago. I think, was it 40 odd men, or yesterday it was in the papers?
No, it was like, there was 44 victims.
44 victims, but it only came to light yesterday. Yeah. Why are we not getting taught about what's going on here in Glasgow?
Because they know that the public are angry when a paedophile is exposed. You know what I mean? The public they get angry, but we've got a right to be angry. But we've also got a right to be able to protect our children. Now, if you're arresting a paedophile, putting him through court, and then that paedophile's just coming out of court and we don't know who he is, he's back ruining our children again.
How bad is the grooming gangs in Glasgow just now?
I think they're like... The thing is very difficult for us, but also for the police. Whenever I've spoken to the police have had a hard time like piecing stuff together, trying to work out. But I've spoken to at least 3 separate men who've been driving up like Victoria Road and have been like stopped somewhere and have been asked like, do you want to go with this girl or this boy? Like, we've heard a lot of rumours that like on Alison Street there are rooms that are lit up with like pink or blue lights to indicate like what kind of children are available. But it's also really difficult to determine like how much of that is fact and how much of that is like anti-immigration sentiment, you know, or the two things kind of come together. I wouldn't have any doubt that it's definitely happening, and I think even for the police, it's very hard for them to, because it's organised crime, right? This isn't like, you know, earlier we were talking about like 4 men who own a kebab shop and bring someone. This is like Slovakian gangsters or like, you know,
the Romanian stuff. Yeah.
They've got this sexual attraction and they act on it. And that's why, like you say, that guy was caught with over 1 million videos. That's 1 million Waynes that have been sexually fucking abused. That's Waynes that have been raped, you know, 1 million of them, you know what I mean? Like, that's staggering. And he's obviously not got every video there is. You know what I mean? So how many millions of videos are there?
Aye.
You know what I mean? How many millions of Waynes have been raped?
And that's scary to think, mate. It is. It's I can't even. It's a thing that you try not think about as much, but when you start hearing people's stories, then it's something that you can't stop that getting involved with and helping people tell their stories to try and stop others.
Tell people to check their Wayne's devices at all times, because nowadays paedophiles are in your front room. Used to be you had to watch the scary old man with the kind of old Mac on. No anymore. They're in your front room and they're in 24/7.
Because I heard that the app TikTok, I just deleted all my daughters there. That is so bad for grooming gangs. So as it's riddled for paedophiles, like you say. It's so many people grooming Waynes on that.
There was an app going about a couple of years ago, I can't remember what it was called now, it slipped my mind. But the way what it was you got your own wee clique of people, so you got all your pals and your added pals and all that, and they would send you like love hearts, presents, stars and things like that to build your popularity. Every week you'd get a prize for being the most popular person on that in your wee clique kind of thing. These paedophiles were going on there and they were saying to the Waynes, lift your tap up and I'll send you a love heart. You know You know what I mean? These wee veins are lifting their tap up so they can get this fucking love hat for popularity. You know what I mean? The post, like, approach these apps, they tell the post to fuck off. They're all in Canada, fucking all different mad countries, you know what I mean? And they just tell the post, no, they're not helping them. Like, why would they do that? It's like Snapchat. Why would Snapchat, what is the reason behind Snapchat?
Photos, videos.
It's crime or it's paedophilia, if you think about it. But why do you need photos to be deleted instantly? Why do you need to know somebody's screenshots of photos you send? Like, why do you need to know all this, right? Why is it so encrypted, and why do they refuse to help the police? Like, you don't need that.
Set up for the paedophile rings so they can share all their information as well.
That and drug dealers and fucking criminals. All right, good people fucking use the app, you know what I mean? But
that's like I said before, there's good and bad and everything, but people will utilise certain things to their advantage, especially paedophiles who groom. They manipulate the mindset, who can manipulate the situation that they're in. They think they're 2 steps ahead, but thankfully for you guys and the people who are doing it all over the UK, there's been thousands of convictions. That's thousands of convictions. Do you know what I mean?
It's like they moan about this, but they'll still use their evidence. They'll still have us sitting in a court. Like, we sat in a courtroom Monday. We sat from 9:30 in the morning to 4 o'clock in the afternoon, didn't get used. Went back on the Tuesday, sat from 9:30 in the morning to, I left at 2:30 because I had to go and get my son. But all I sat there to 4 o'clock and we didn't get used again. So it was like 14 hours sat in a court, not to get used.
Did they send you videos as well on the Facebook and other apps? The paedophiles send you videos and
a lot
pictures?
of the time they send us pictures and videos of how to masturbate. Like, they don't know why, right? So they're always sending videos to the Wayne how to masturbate, because they're trying to tell the Wayne to touch herself, you know what I mean? So we're always like, why would you do that and all that kind of thing. So they'll send videos of like a woman masturbating, or if it's a boy, we'll send a picture, a photo of a guy. But that happens a lot.
And this is when you tell them, like, you're 10, 11, 12.
10, 11, 12, you're up to 14.